If you're hooked by stories of resilience, precision, and a silent, deadly kind of heroism, don't forget to like and subscribe. This story is just beginning, and the silence is only the start. The sun had barely kissed the horizon when the team moved in, their boots soft against the rocky earth, the weight of the night still hanging over them. There was no room for hesitation. Every step was calculated, every breath measured, the weight of the mission pressing down on their shoulders like an unspoken promise. The air smelled of dust and metal, a subtle reminder that they weren't just stepping into enemy territory, they were stepping into the heart of a storm. This wasn't about orders anymore. It wasn't about playing by the rules. It was about survival. And at this moment, survival meant that a single sniper, nestled in the shadows, could mean the difference between life and death for the entire team. I was that sniper. There was something about the stillness before a fight. It wasn't fear. It was clarity. The sharpness in my mind. The clarity of my scope as it trained on the target ahead. Every movement, every heartbeat, was filtered out of existence. The world seemed to pause, even as chaos churned beneath the surface. My eyes didn't waver as I swept the perimeter with meticulous precision, my weapon balanced in my hands like an extension of my own body. I could feel the rise and fall of my chest, the controlled rhythm of my breathing, the pulse of blood through my veins. This was my world, a world of quiet, unseen danger, where every heartbeat could be the last, and every shot was a message, delivered in silence, far too fast for anyone to hear. Ahead, the team moved swiftly, their forms cloaked by the underbrush, shadows merging with shadows. I could hear their radios crackling faintly in my earpiece, muted whispers in the air, like ghosts speaking in the distance. They weren't just SEALs, they were ghosts in their own right, trained to slip in and out of the shadows, invisible and lethal. But I wasn't with them on the ground. My domain was up here, above them, watching, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. In that moment, I knew my job. I wasn't here to make noise, to charge forward with guns blazing. No. My job was quieter, far more deliberate. My job was to make sure they didn't make it that far. If they failed, it would be because of me. As I adjusted my scope, I saw the first flicker of movement, distant figures on the ridge, enemies unaware of the storm about to strike them. The first target presented itself like a gift, too easy to miss. I didn't hesitate. My finger tightened against the trigger, and the rifle recoiled gently in my arms. The sound was nothing but a soft click, silent to the world, but loud enough to end a life. The target dropped without a sound. The air didn't even seem to shift. I watched the enemy's reaction through my scope, a few heads turning, but no panic, no immediate awareness. They had no idea that their fate was already sealed, that their own movements were nothing more than a game of cat and mouse. I had the upper hand, and I wouldn't let it slip. Not today. Behind me, the team's leader, Carter, I think his name was, shifted positions. His voice crackled over the radio, a whisper barely audible over the static. Move in, move in. We need to secure the perimeter, now. He didn't know yet, but I was already ahead of him. His orders, his urgency, didn't change a thing. The world was still moving at my pace. The next target appeared. I took another breath, steady and slow, focusing on the task at hand. A slight movement of the rifle's barrel and pop. The second enemy soldier went down, like a shadow falling into darkness. Each shot was a silent promise, a mark of precision. I wasn't just killing. I was delivering justice, in the only way I knew how. My eyes remained fixed on the targets. The line between friend and foe never blurred in my mind. I had learned to separate myself from everything else. The world didn't exist outside the scope, outside the crosshairs. The world wasn't real when it was only me, my rifle, and the enemy. Another shot. Another enemy down. The SEALs below me continued their work, unaware of how the odds were shifting in their favor, unaware that their survival was a product of a much quieter force, a sniper in the shadows. It was a game of patience. I knew when to hold off, when to wait for the next move, and when to strike. But there was something else now, something that sharpened the edge of the mission. I wasn't just clearing a path anymore. I was feeling something in the pit of my stomach, a pressure building. It wasn't fear, but it was something close. My instincts were firing in a way they hadn't before. Something was wrong. I checked the perimeter once more, scanning for any sign of movement, anything that could explain the rising tension. I wasn't just getting the feeling of being watched, I was certain of it. The enemy wasn't moving like they should be, and my gut tightened. There was something out there, something I couldn't see yet, but I knew it was closing in. "Are we clear?" Carter's voice cut through the static in my earpiece. "I'm not sure," I replied softly, my voice barely a whisper. I wasn't lying, but I wasn't ready to share the unease creeping up my spine. There was no time for doubts. My job was to be the rock when the storm hit. The world felt different now. The air was too still. The distant sound of boots shifting on gravel felt too loud. My scope flicked across the ridge again, searching for any sign of danger. I needed to stay ahead of the plan, but something told me the plan had already changed. Somewhere, deep in the woods, I could feel eyes watching. The weight of the silence pressed in around me, the air thick with anticipation. The SEALs had made their move, but I wasn't ready to let my guard down just yet. I had trained my whole life for moments like this, where a single breath could betray you, where a split second of hesitation could cost you everything. My rifle was an extension of my body, my eyes glued to the scope, searching, seeking, every second a new chance to end it all. The enemy was out there, somewhere. I could feel them, just beyond my reach. And in the stillness, in the quiet hum of the world, I knew they could feel me, too. One by one, the soldiers below me moved through the underbrush, their movements calculated and deliberate. I could hear their quiet grunts as they pushed through the terrain, their breaths controlled but heavy, matching the weight of the mission. They knew the drill: move fast, move quiet, get the job done. But they also knew the price of failure, the price of being too loud, too slow, too visible. I wasn't just covering them. I was ensuring that failure wouldn't be an option. To the glass of my scope, the world transformed. Everything I saw was zoomed in, sharpened to the finest detail, a mosaic of movement and stillness, of light and shadow. A flicker to my left caught my attention. A soldier, moving just beyond the tree line. His posture was wrong, too rigid, too tense. He was a threat. I didn't need to think about it. My finger moved without hesitation, the trigger pull almost as automatic as breathing. The shot rang out, soft, imperceptible, but in my world, it was the loudest sound there was. The enemy soldier crumpled, his body folding like paper in a gust of wind. The others didn't notice. Not yet. I adjusted my position, sliding deeper into the underbrush, keeping myself just out of sight. The tension in my muscles was familiar, a steady hum of readiness that never quite left. The radio crackled in my ear. "How's the perimeter?" Carter's voice came through, calm but urgent. "Still clear," I said, the words rolling off my tongue, a lie wrapped in truth. The truth was, I hadn't seen or heard a thing that could give away our position. But that nagging feeling in my gut hadn't gone away. It was still there, that sense of being watched, the creeping suspicion that someone, was closing in. I shifted my scope again, tracking the movements of the remaining enemy soldiers. They had started to fan out, their search becoming more desperate, more erratic. They didn't know it yet, but they were already playing into my hands. They thought they had the advantage. They thought they were the hunters. But the moment they decided to scatter, they sealed their fate. And I wasn't about to let them escape. I lined up the next shot. A man, crouching behind a rock, rifle raised. His silhouette was clear against the backdrop of the fading sun, a shadow among shadows. I could see the tension in his muscles, the slight twitch in his finger as he prepared to fire. He never stood a chance. The bullet hit him in the chest before he even realized what was happening. He fell backward, his body folding under the weight of the impact, his rifle clattering to the ground with an almost mournful sound. The SEALs were getting closer, the time to fall back drawing near. But the enemy was starting to catch on. A figure appeared in the distance, running toward the edge of the ridge, his movement swift, calculated. It was a sprint, too fast, too deliberate. He was heading straight for my position. My heart skipped a beat. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. This wasn't part of the plan. I had no time to second-guess myself. My finger tightened again, pulling the trigger. The shot rang out, but this time the target didn't drop. The bullet grazed his shoulder, sending him into a wild spin, his rifle slipping from his grasp as he tumbled to the ground. He scrambled to regain his footing, but I was already tracking him again, the scope pulling him back into focus. The next shot was perfect, a clean hit to the head. He crumpled like the others, no sound, no struggle, just stillness. For a moment, everything felt too quiet. My pulse thudded in my ears, and my hands, though steady, felt the weight of the mission pressing down harder. I wasn't just watching anymore. I was waiting for the next move, the next shift in the terrain. The enemy had learned something. They were adapting. They were no longer blindly walking into my sights. They were hunting now, too. I could feel their presence, the way they moved through the forest like predators. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. The game had changed, but I was already a step ahead. Another soldier. A flicker of movement just out of my peripheral vision. He had his eyes trained on the wrong part of the ridge. He was too distracted, too focused on where the others had fallen. His back was wide open to me. I took my shot. This time, I made sure it was clean. He didn't even have time to react. Just a single, clean shot, and he was gone. The feeling in my gut hadn't changed. If anything, it had deepened, a gnawing sense that something wasn't right. The SEALs were close now, pushing through the final stretch of enemy territory, their voices crackling in my earpiece, but I couldn't shake the feeling. I wasn't the only one out here anymore. I wasn't alone. It wasn't paranoia, it was instinct. I was being watched, and I wasn't sure how much longer I could hold them off. The radio buzzed again. One more push, and we'll be clear. You ready up there? I paused for a split second, my rifle steady in my hands. Ready? I thought. I had been ready since the moment I stepped into this hell. But the real question wasn't whether I was ready, it was whether they were. And whether I was about to be the one to save them. I took a deep breath, adjusting my grip on the rifle. No hesitation. No doubts. I was the last thing standing between the enemy and the team. And I wasn't going anywhere. The world outside my scope blurred, the edges of reality fading as I focused on my targets, my shots, my mission. The enemy's movements had become erratic, panicked. They knew they were being picked off, one by one, but they couldn't see where the danger was coming from. That's the beauty of being a sniper. You don't need to be seen to kill. You just need to be patient enough to wait for them to make the mistake of showing themselves. And I had the luxury of time. Time to think, time to breathe, time to make each shot count. But as the last few enemies began to retreat, something shifted in the air. A heaviness settled in the pit of my stomach. The whisper of movement just beyond my reach made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I wasn't the only predator in these woods anymore. My rifle clicked softly in my hands as I adjusted my position, scanning the perimeter again. Something wasn't right. The voices in my earpiece had quieted, the urgency in Carter's voice growing more pronounced. Are you good up there? We're almost at extraction. You've got us covered, right? I hesitated for just a fraction of a second, just enough to feel my pulse quicken. Yeah, I replied, my voice steady despite the sudden tension creeping up my spine. I'm good. But even as the words left my mouth, I wasn't entirely convinced. I had done this countless times before, covering the team's advance, ensuring they had a clear route. But this felt different. This felt like something was watching me now. The enemy had retreated, but not far enough. I could see their shadows moving along the tree line, trying to regroup. They were desperate. They were scared, but they weren't done yet. And that was the problem. I knew that if I didn't act quickly, they would regroup, and that could spell disaster for the team. Carter's voice crackled again, distant now. We're about 500 meters from extraction. One last push. Hold your position. We're coming in hot. The world slowed, the urgency of their situation threading into my consciousness. They needed me. The team was counting on me to hold the line, to clear the way so they could get out unscathed. I had no choice but to keep going. But as I trained my scope on the enemy's position, something inside me clicked, a sudden clarity that I'd never had before. I wasn't just a sniper anymore. I wasn't just a tool being used to clear a path. I was the one deciding the outcome. The tension that had been gnawing at me snapped into focus. I wasn't waiting for the perfect shot. I was forcing the enemy into the perfect mistake. I took a breath, steadying my hands, and watched the figures moving below. The last few stragglers were breaking cover, scattering in every direction. My finger found the trigger, steady and sure. One by one, the remaining soldiers fell, their attempts to escape futile as I picked them off with cold, calculated precision. But just as I was about to line up the final shot, I saw it. Movement on the far side of the ridge, something big, something fast. It wasn't a soldier. It was a vehicle, an enemy Humvee, barreling toward the extraction point, gunner manning the heavy machine gun mounted on the roof. It was too close to the team. If it got within range, they would be sitting ducks. I didn't waste time. I shifted my aim, adjusted for the wind, and fired. The bullet hit the vehicle's tire, sending it swerving to the side. The vehicle careened off course, crashing into a cluster of trees, blocking the path to the extraction point. The gunner was thrown from his perch, and the vehicle came to a halt in a twisted mess of metal and dust. My earpiece crackled again. What the hell just happened? Carter's voice was sharp, a mix of confusion and relief. Just bought you some time. I replied, my voice calm, almost detached. The chaos around me slowed. I could feel the ground beneath me, steady and unyielding. The SEALs were close now, their voices louder in my earpiece as they neared the extraction zone. The danger wasn't gone, but I had given them what they needed, a way out. I lowered my rifle, finally allowing myself a breath. I watched as the team began to move toward the extraction point, their movements swift and sure. Carter's team had made it through the worst of it. They were almost home. But as the final shots rang out, signaling the end of the enemy's fight, I felt a strange stillness settle over me. The fight wasn't over for me. It never was. I was still out there, still a part of the game, still the ghost in the trees. The team would make it to safety, but I wasn't done yet. I wasn't finished until I was sure the job was done. And in this line of work, the job was never really done. It was just quiet. For now. As the last of the gunfire faded, I rose from my position, the shadows of the forest swallowing me whole. I was already thinking about the next move, the next step, the next mission. Because in my world, there's always another one. And I wouldn't stop until the mission was complete.